Just when I thought I was alone, a moment of unexpected tension changed everything, and I found myself drawn into a world of secrets, desire, and a connection I never saw coming. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video if you enjoy heartfelt stories like this one. My name is Zara and I'm 50 years old. I've spent most of my life walking along a path shaped by responsibilities, memories, and silence. My days were filled with routines, and my nights with reflections. I was known to the world as a composed woman, mature and content with life. But deep inside, there were parts of me that longed for warmth, for understanding, and maybe for something I couldn't name. I had been alone for years. My marriage had ended long ago, and while I never regretted raising my daughter on my own, life had become quiet after she moved abroad. I filled my days with gardening, reading, and taking long walks in the evening, hoping to fill the silence. I never expected anything new to happen at this stage of my life. But everything shifted when my friend Aisha asked for a favor. She was traveling out of the country for a few months and needed someone to look after her 25-year-old son, Kareem. He had just returned from university abroad and was still adjusting to life back home. Aisha trusted me, and I couldn't refuse. Kareem came to stay with me in early spring. I still remember the moment he walked through my front door. Tall, confident, with a warm smile that instantly lit up the space. He greeted me with respect and ease, his deep voice carrying both energy and calm. "I hope I won't be any trouble, Auntie Zara," he said kindly. I smiled and welcomed him in, but a strange flutter stirred in my chest. I dismissed it immediately. After all, he was just a guest, and I was simply offering a home for a short while. The first few days passed uneventfully. He was polite, helpful, and surprisingly mature for his age. We would share meals and talk about books, life, and travel. I hadn't had such thoughtful conversations in years. His curiosity and genuine interest in my stories made me feel heard in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, while we sat on the terrace sipping tea, the wind played gently with my hair. Kareem looked at me for a moment longer than usual. His eyes held something that made me slightly uneasy, but not in a bad way. It was as if he saw me, really saw me, not just as someone older or a caretaker, but as a woman. "You know, Auntie," he said slowly, "you have a very calming presence. Being here feels peaceful." I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled. But that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about what he had said. There was something about the way he looked at me, something warm and gentle. Was I reading too much into it? Days turned into weeks. Kareem started helping me with household tasks, watering the plants, fixing small things around the house, even cooking with me in the kitchen. We laughed often. Our bond grew quietly, and I began to feel lighter, more alive. One morning, while I was preparing breakfast, he walked in wearing a simple black shirt that clung to his frame just right. I felt a sudden rush of awareness, something I hadn't felt in years. I turned away, pretending to focus on the toast. "You're up early," I said, keeping my tone light. "I like spending time with you in the morning," he replied without hesitation. That single sentence echoed in my mind all day. Later that week, we went to the local market together. While I was picking out vegetables, a stranger approached me and said, "You and your son make a lovely pair." Before I could correct her, Kareem smiled and said, "Thank you." Afterwards in the car I asked, "Why didn't you tell her I'm not your mother?" He turned to me, his eyes serious yet soft. "I didn't mind. Honestly, being around you, it feels good. Like I belong." I couldn't speak. I felt something shift in me. Something that had been locked away was now quietly stirring. One rainy afternoon we were both stuck inside. The power went out, and the storm outside grew stronger. We lit candles and sat in the living room, wrapped in warm shawls. The rain pelted the windows while we sat close, talking about dreams, fears, and forgotten hopes. Kareem suddenly asked, "Have you ever felt like you missed out on something? Something just for you?" The question took me by surprise. I nodded slowly. "Yes, but I don't talk about it. You can if you want. With me," he said gently. There was something about his presence, his maturity that made me feel safe. I shared pieces of my heart I hadn't spoken of in years. He listened with such attentiveness, such care, that my eyes welled with tears. He didn't say anything, just reached out and held my hand. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. My hand fit perfectly in his. Warm, steady, real. That night changed something. I couldn't pretend anymore. There was a connection between us that went beyond age, beyond explanation. But I was afraid of what it meant, of how others would see it, of how he might feel. The next few days I tried to distance myself slightly, to remind myself that this was temporary. But Kareem noticed. One evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, he stopped me. "Have I done something wrong?" he asked. "No," I said quickly. "Not at all." "Then why do you seem distant?" I didn't know how to answer. The truth was too complicated, too unexpected. But he waited, patient and sincere. I took a deep breath. "I'm just trying to do what's right." He looked at me, eyes steady. "And what if what's right doesn't look like what others expect?" His words stayed with me that night. I realized that what I felt wasn't wrong, it was human. It was honest. And perhaps it was something beautiful. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake for hours, thinking about everything Kareem had said. His presence had gently unraveled something within me, something I had kept locked away for decades. But still I was afraid. Afraid of how the world would perceive us. Afraid of the line we were quietly approaching. Yet, a deeper part of me wondered, was this the kind of connection people search for their whole lives? The next morning I tried to go about my day as usual. I folded laundry, dusted the bookshelves, and watered the garden. But my mind was elsewhere. Kareem noticed, of course. He always did. Around noon, I was in the kitchen when he walked in and leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "You're doing that thing again," he said softly. "What thing?" I asked, not looking up. "Keeping everything to yourself. Pretending you're fine when you're not." I sighed. "I'm used to it." "You don't have to be," he replied, stepping closer. There was a silence between us, not heavy but full. I turned to face him. "You're young, Kareem. You have your whole life ahead. What we're feeling, it's confusing. Maybe it's just because we've been spending too much time together. Maybe it's temporary. Or maybe it's real," he said gently. "Maybe it's something rare." I looked into his eyes, and for the first time I didn't try to look away. There was no judgment there, only understanding. Maybe he was right. Maybe we had found something rare, something that didn't fit into a neat little box, but still deserved to exist. We didn't talk about it again for a few days. But the energy between us had shifted. It was as though our silences now said more than our words. We found ourselves sitting closer on the couch, our conversations deeper, our glances longer. One evening we went out to a nearby park. The sun was setting, casting a soft golden hue across the trees. We walked slowly, side by side, our hands occasionally brushing. It was quiet, but it felt complete. As we sat on a bench watching the sky change colors, Kareem turned to me. "You once told me you missed out on things meant just for you. Do you still feel that way?" I thought for a moment. "Not as much since you came." He smiled, then reached out and held my hand again, this time with quiet certainty. That touch, so gentle and warm, spoke louder than any words. Weeks passed. The bond between us grew. There was no rush, no grand declarations, just the comfort of being around each other. Kareem respected every boundary, every hesitation. He made me feel cherished without ever crossing a line. One afternoon he surprised me with a painting. It was a simple portrait of a woman standing in a garden, surrounded by blooming flowers. Her expression was serene, but her eyes told stories. "It's you," he said. I was speechless. "Kareem, this is beautiful. You've brought life back into this house," he said. "And into me." Tears stung my eyes. No one had seen me like that in years. Maybe ever. I hugged him, not as a host, not as an elder, but simply as someone deeply touched. He held me with quiet strength, as though he knew what that moment meant to me. That evening, I found myself sitting alone on the balcony, looking up at the stars. I whispered a small prayer, asking for clarity. Life had always taught me to suppress, to avoid judgment, to follow the rules. But what if those rules never accounted for this kind of connection? The next day, Kareem sat me down. "I need to tell you something," he said. "I've been offered a job back in the city. It's a good opportunity. I'd leave next week." The words hit me like a wave I wasn't ready for. I tried to smile. "That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. But I haven't accepted it yet," he added. I looked at him, surprised. "Why not?" "Because a part of me doesn't want to leave. Not without knowing what this truly is. Not without being honest with you." I couldn't speak. "I've never felt this way before," he continued. "It's not just admiration, Zara. Care. Deep, meaningful care. I know the world may not understand it. But I do. And I think you do too." I finally found my voice. "I care for you too, Kareem. More than I ever thought possible. But I don't want to hold you back. You have dreams, a future. You're part of that future," he interrupted gently. "If you'll allow it." His words settled deep in my heart. I had spent years convincing myself I was too old for love, too far along the road to begin again. But here was someone who didn't see me that way. Someone who saw my spirit, not just my age. In the end, Kareem did take the job, but only part-time. He arranged to work remotely half the week and visit every weekend. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a simple decision rooted in something real. We didn't rush anything. Our bond continued to grow naturally. We respected time, space, and everything in between. Slowly, the people around us began to see our connection not as unusual, but as something built on kindness and honesty. A year later, we stood together in that same garden where the portrait had come to life. Flowers bloomed all around us, and the sun smiled down. I looked at him and he looked back, not as a guest in my home anymore, but as someone who had become a constant part of my world. Love had arrived in the most unexpected way. Not with loud promises or dramatic moments, but with quiet understanding, gentle respect, and unwavering presence. And in the end, that was all I had ever needed.